Hello and welcome to The World This Week with James Dickman. A look back at some of the biggest global news stories for an international city, brought to you by the London Live News team. Coming up this morning, a small plane crashes in the middle of a busy market street in Haiti, killing 5 on board. A terrifying incident in Port-au-Prince this week. The Horn of Africa is facing one of the worst droughts in 40 years. What will the knock-on effect mean for millions of Africans?
Put a knife in
I think that's a really
The Queen turned 96 this week. The cannons mark the occasion in the capital, whilst her grandson, Prince Harry, says he's not sure whether he'll make it to the Jubilee in June. That's all on the way before 7:30, but first to Ukraine, and the strategically vital port city of Mariupol became the main focus in the conflict this week as Russia claimed the city. On Wednesday, a Ukrainian Marine commander in Mariupol made what he described as his troops' last address to the world.
Це може бути нашим останнім зверненням. В нас, можливо, залишились лічні дні або години. Угрупування противника в десятки разів перебільшує нас. Вони мають панування у повітрі, в артилерії, в угрупуваннях, які діють на суходолі, технікою та танками. Ми ведемо оборону на одному об'єкті, на заводі, де знаходяться військові Маріупольського гарнізону та цивільні особи, які потрапили в пастку війни. Ми звертаємось до світових лідерів допомогти нам. Ми звертаємось з проханням застосувати до нас процедуру екстракшн та вивести нас на територію третьої держави. Маріупольський гарнізон військових, з нами більше ніж 500 поранених бійців та сотні цивільних осіб, серед яких є жінки та діти.
Vladimir Putin ordered his troops not to storm the Azovstal steel plant, where the last group of Ukrainian fighters in Mariupol were holding out, but instead corner it so that nothing and no one could get out. Some civilians trapped for weeks have been able to leave, but far fewer than hoped. In the east of Ukraine, fighting continues on a 300-mile front. Russia has not had any major breakthroughs, according to a think tank this week. However, on Friday, Russia had claimed to have taken around 40 villages, a temporary capture, said Volodymyr Zelensky. Well, US President Joe Biden also announced an additional $800 million security assistance package for Ukraine.
Now they've launched and refocused their campaign to seize new territory in eastern Ukraine. And we're in a critical window now of time where they're going to set the stage for the next phase of this war. And the United States and our allies and partners are moving as fast as possible to continue to provide Ukraine the forces that they need, the weapons they need, the equipment they need. Their forces need to defend their nation.
Well, Russia is furiously bombing the city of Kharkiv as well. Its mayor said this week in a televised address. He said around 1 million people remain in the northeastern city. Around 30% of the population has evacuated, mainly women, children and the elderly. The people of Kharkiv are getting used to their new life in basements as Russian forces continue their weeks-long offensive against Ukraine's second largest city.
We don't have electricity, water, any communications at all, including gas. In my house, number 29, gas tubes were damaged with fragments. The emergency workers checked it and said it must be replaced.
If a garage is hit, you go and pick up panels. Where else can we get it? A tree is hit, we'll pull it and cut it. There's no other option. Here is where we sleep. It's made of tables, school desks and chairs. We used what we had. We took sleeping mats from the school. My flat was partly damaged, all windows and doors were blown off, but the walls withstood. It's impossible to stay here as it's on the 8th floor, and when the shelling starts, it's not for the faint-hearted. Volunteers bring us cabbage, beets, canned beans and garnish for borscht. We mixed everything and made borscht.
Also this week, the Russian Defense Ministry has released a video of what it says is a successful launch of a nuclear-capable missile. The new Sarmat Super Heavy Intercontinental Ballistic Missile was launched from a spaceport in the northwestern region of Russia and landed in the other side of Russia in the far eastern Kamchatka Peninsula. Well, President Putin said it was food for thought for those who try to threaten Russia. Well, let's take a look at this before we leave the situation in Ukraine. After Russia withdrew from regions around the capital of Kyiv, leaving death and devastation, which includes mountains of evidence of alleged war crimes. We've seen pictures of civilians tied up and shot, bodies strewn across the highway, scenes still on show, present in this very footage, taken just this week, but we've chosen to leave them out. Well, it's the Ukrainians who've survived, who were left to pick up the pieces. Before the war started, Vlad Minchenko was painting and making tattoos, but since Russian forces entered Bucha, he's been collecting dead bodies in the city as a volunteer.
People were walking on the road or riding a bicycle when snipers shot them in the head. Some were shot in the backyards. 6 or 7 people with hands tied behind their backs were shot in the head as well. I've collected a lot of bodies, more than 100. I can't find words to describe what happened the first days. We were told by Russian troops, go there. 15 bodies are lying there. Others stopped 3 of us. They told us to go to the fence. We said that we wouldn't go to the fence. If you want to shoot us here. We won't be lying near a fence.
Since then, he and other volunteers have been called daily by relatives to dig up buried bodies and take them to the cemetery. He hopes to continue his life in art after, if the trauma doesn't fully grip him, he says.
My hands are shaking in the morning. When I wake up, I can't dial a number or send a message on the telephone. Later, in the second half of the day, it goes away. I hope it will go away, because it's impossible to paint or to make a tattoo with trembling hands.
Scenes from a devastated city, one of all too many settlements in the region left with no hope. Well, let's head to France now, where the all-encompassing issue remains in their election. The leadership race for who will be the next president of France is hotting up as the French head to the polls tomorrow to cast their vote. The 2 frontrunners, current President Emmanuel Macron and his previous opponent in the 2017 election, Marine Le Pen of the far-right National Rally Party, took part in a hotly anticipated televised debate this week. 15.6 million watched the candidates confront each other on the cost of living, climate change and immigration, as well as Le Pen's links to Putin, which Macron took her to task on.
I believe, again, you were one of the first European politicians back in 2014 to recognise the outcome of the annexation of Crimea. I remind you that in international law, we rarely recognise, that is, we do not do it anymore since World War II, territories that are annexed by force, even though Vladimir Putin had recognised that the conditions of his referendum in Crimea were his. Why did you do it? And I say this with great gravity tonight, because for our country, this is bad news, because you depend on the Russian power and you depend on Mr. Putin. Because a few months after you said that, Ms. Le Pen, you took out a loan in 2015 from a Russian bank, the first Czech Russian bank close to Russian power. This was in September 2014. Then you transferred this loan to other actors. All this is totally transparent, known, notified, notarized. Then there were implications of loans from that bank in the war in Syria. And so you don't talk to other leaders, you talk to your banker when you talk about Russia. That's the problem, Ms. Le Pen. So maybe that's also what makes it difficult as soon as there are courageous positions to take. Neither you nor your representatives are present. And it's no coincidence that 5 years ago, Russia intervened in the French election campaign, which was proven to destabilise me. And you have always been ambiguous about it in real life.
Si vous avez toujours été ambigu sur le sujet.
Well, Le Pen says her party went to the first Czech-Russian bank after French and European banks refused to lend its money, while the loan has dogged her far-right party for years, along with her ties to Putin. Elsewhere, agricultural workers in the East and Horn of Africa are preparing for their most severe drought in 40 years, as authorities warn that higher temperatures and less than normal rainfall was recorded by weather agencies in March and April this year. The drought is threatening to throw the population, especially in arid and semi-arid areas, into starvation.
Already 15.5 to 16 million of our sisters and brothers are in need of immediate food assistance due to this drought.
Well, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development said rains will likely fail for a fourth consecutive year, triggering fears of increased cases of malnutrition, threats to livelihoods and severe risks for 29 million people in the region. Approximately 1.4 million children under 5 in the Horn of Africa are vulnerable to acute malnutrition.
This drought is the worst drought that we have seen for the last 20 years. It affected the whole community, especially children, especially the under 5 children. So we are getting here a lot of malnourished children, more than the children that we have seen 6 months ago. The number of admissions have increased from 5 patients per day to 15 patients per day.
The World This Week continues after the break. The Queen turned 96 this week as the gun salutes echoed around London. We'll hear from Prince Harry on his duty to his grandmother. Hello and welcome back. You're watching The World This Week from the London Live News team, a review of the main international stories that have broken over the last 7 days. Still to come before 7:30. We'll tell you about the plane that careered into a lively street in the middle of Port-au-Prince in Haiti, causing instant devastation. But first to the big story from over here. Boris Johnson will be investigated by a Commons committee over claims he misled Parliament about parties in Downing Street during lockdown. MPs agreed in Commons, without a vote needed, that the Privileges Committee will launch an inquiry once the police have finished their own investigation into the gatherings. The government had tried to delay the vote, but U-turned following opposition from its own MPs. The Prime Minister travelled to India this week on an official trip. While Labour led a motion calling for the investigation, Mr Johnson was therefore not present for a fiery debate that took place. One Conservative MP said of his own party that Boris Johnson and the effects to save his job had created a toxic atmosphere amongst the Conservatives.
We have been working in a toxic atmosphere. The parliamentary party bears the scars of misjudgments of leadership. There can be few colleagues on this side of the House, I would contend, who are truly enjoying being members of Parliament at the moment. It is utterly depressing to be asked to defend the indefensible.
Boris Johnson had to face Commons on Tuesday and Wednesday to face the music over the fine he received by the Met Police for breaking lockdown laws in June 2020. During his apology in the House, he faced continuing heckles asking for his resignation. Sir Keir Starmer called the PM a man without shame. And also, over here this week, Queen Elizabeth II marked her 96th birthday privately on Thursday, retreating to the Sandringham estate, a place that's offered the monarch and her late husband, Prince Philip, a refuge from the affairs of state. This picture was also released celebrating her love of horses. It was taken on the grounds of Windsor Castle. Well, this birthday comes during the Queen's Platinum Jubilee year, marking 70 years on the throne. Prince Harry opened up about his recent visit to his grandmother, speaking with US network NBC's The Today Show from the Invictus Games. He said his role was to protect her.
It was great. It was just so nice to see her. You know, she's on great form. She's always got a great sense of humour with me, and I'm just making sure that she's, you know, protected and got the right people around her. After a certain age, you get bored of birthdays.
You do? You think she's bored of her 96? She won't be bored of the Jubilee, will she?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. she's had a few Jubilees now, so everyone is slightly different. But I'm sure she's looking.
Do you think you'll come?
I don't know yet. There's lots of things with security issues and everything else. So this is what I'm trying to do, trying to make it possible that, you know, I can get my kids to meet her.
Well, to mark the day, the Coldstream Guards Band Parade were on song in Windsor Castle and played Happy Birthday. .41 guns were fired at Hyde Park, and there was also a gun salute at the Tower of London. And the big news in sport in the UK after a very poor run of form for Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world, have announced a new manager to take the reins. Dutch side Ajax's boss Erik ten Hag will come in the summer. Well, let's take a look at the career he's had before taking up the Old Trafford hot seats.
It's going to be difficult, but everything's difficult. Boosting ourselves.
Hag has signed a 3-year deal with the option of a further 12 months, taking over from Ralf Rangnick. Ten Hag will be United's 5th permanent manager since Alex Ferguson retired in 2013. The club have won only 3 trophies in the following 9 years. Let's take a look at some other brief headlines from around the world now. A series of explosions across Taliban-controlled Afghanistan on Thursday killed at least 11 people and wounded around 40 more. The first explosion tore through a Shia mosque in the city of Mazar-e-Sharif. The Islamic State group admitted the first of the 4 explosions. The group called the attack part of an ongoing global campaign to avenge the deaths of its former leader and spokesman. And in Haiti, a small plane crashed on Wednesday in the bustling Haitian capital of Port-au-Prince, killing at least 5 people and injuring several others. The plane was headed to the southern coastal city of Jasmel when it tried to land in the community of Carrefour and hit a truck transporting soda bottles.
I saw the plane flying over the area, then I heard a boom noise. I thought they fell on my house. I went out to see and everyone was screaming, and I saw the plane that had just fallen. I saw all the dead people in the plane.
Well, the incident comes 9 months after a small private plane, also headed to Jasmel, crashed near Port-au-Prince, killing 6 people that time, including 2 US missionaries. And shares in Netflix have slumped by 35% after it revealed a sharp drop in subscribers and warned millions more are set to quit the streaming service. It wiped more than $50 billion off the firm's market value, as experts warned it faced a struggle to get back on track. Netflix faces intense competition from streaming rivals, but was also hit after it raised prices and left Russia. And finally, this morning, it wasn't just the Queen celebrating her birthday this week. Staff at the zoo at Sowerby Hall in Bridlington celebrate the 32nd birthday of Rosie the Humboldt penguin, native to South America. The zoo staff believe that she is the oldest Humboldt penguin in the world.
She's a bit slow now on land, but she still enjoys a really good swim. She's still good at swimming, and she's got a great appetite. She still eats plenty of fish. She's had 3 daughters since she's been with us, and last year she had her first grandchild. She comes out every morning. She spends a lot of time sleeping now because of her age, because at 32, she's, to get to that age, it's a remarkable achievement. But she's a very gentle penguin. We hand feed her so she doesn't have to compete with the others in the pool, and she takes the fish so gently. She's got a lovely character.
Well, here's Rosie being presented with a cake made of watermelon and fish and celebrated alongside daughter, Flip-Flop, and grandchild, Pickle, who joined for a birthday song.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rosie. Happy birthday to you.
Hip hip!
Hooray!
Hip hip!
Hooray!
Hip hip!
That's our version of happy birthday.
There you go. If you can't enjoy all gathering around to wish a confused penguin a happy birthday in song, then what are we all doing here? That's all from The World This Week with James Dickman. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, for more from international headlines and intriguing stories from around the world. But for now, good morning.